To set the scene, this story starts in 2020. I would have just had my junior year of high school cut short because of the pandemic. That summer, you really couldn't go places because everyone was scared of the pandemic. And I just remembered staying up all night with my best friend and playing Fortnite. And then out of nowhere, the news hit that there was a report that Megan Thee Stallion and Tory Lanez were being investigated for the sounds of gunshots, and something about her stepping on glass, which sounded weird, but I just continued on playing Fortnite, not thinking much of it. And then after a long time, in August of 2023, Tory was convicted with a 10-year sentence. As of today in 2025, I just graduated college and I heard about Tory's team presenting never before seen evidence. This new evidence really interested me to research and to see if Tory was actually innocent and if Megan was actually framing Tory. I learned things about trials that I had never seen before, and the biggest thing that I learned is that you shouldn't look at one side of evidence. You should look at all of it and then make the proper judgment. Looking at everything, I believe that Tory did shoot Megan, and a lot of the things that Tory's team did to try to defend him in this new evidence can easily be debunked and convince me that his team is not trying to show evidence or anything concrete to truly free him, but to create a fictional narrative about him being the main character in everything and everyone trying to take him down. I want to debunk this narrative and show you why the jury came to the verdict that they did, starting with the biggest claim of her not being shot at all. She clearly stepped on glass. This claim, out of all of them, made me question Tory's team because not only is it easily debunked, but it's counterintuitive to paint out Kelsey as the shooter while in the same breath arguing that Megan was not shot at all, but I digress. The new evidence is police saying that they think that she stepped on glass.
On the same car.
Okay. And then, do we know how she got cut?
I believe when she stepped down, there's a glass.
She
right
dropped
here.
a glass bottle, and then I think she stepped on it and cut herself.
Okay.
Getting out of the vehicle.
Okay. Good. Okay.
She cut herself when she stepped out.
Move back to the sound of my voice.
Move back.
Back.
Oh,
Keep
she
going.
cut herself.
Keep going. Hands up. Hands up. All right. Move back to the sound of my voice. Keep your hands up. Move back to the sound of my voice. Move back. Keep going. Keep going. Moving.
It's right there on the floor.
Yeah.
Even in Money Over Fallouts, Tory says, gotta see a couple questions. How the you get shot in your foot but don't hit no bones or tendons. The way that they are presenting it is that this moment right here, this video, is where both her feet got messed up by the glass. She clearly stepped on the bottle that fell out of the car, and the police saw her step on the bottle. There's one huge problem with this deduction, and I feel Tory's team purposefully left this out of the video of the body cams that they do show. And this is the fact that there was blood left in the car. Some got on Kelsey's suitcase, and some got on the center console as if Megan was propping her foot up in the back seat, as well as a towel soaked with blood. This implied that there was no way that both her feet getting injured during this moment is the reason that her feet were bleeding, because they were bleeding before she got out because there was blood in the car. So you would have to believe that she stepped on glass twice, and they're not even saying or debating that she got these injuries on her foot from the previous incident of her stepping on the glass. They're saying this specific incident is where she got the foot injuries. Slight correction, they actually used the video of Megan being in the hospital, and Megan says that she was cut a few days before, and that's how her right foot ended up looking the way it did. But at the same time, that still doesn't make sense, because she was cut a few days ago. Why would her feet be bloodied in the car today? And also, Tory's team doesn't necessarily use this, but I'm going to kind of throw a bone at Tory. In the first video, his team doesn't point this out, but Megan says that she was cut in a separate location, even though all this evidence in the first part is trying to correlate the cuts being from the glass bottle she stepped on. But this still doesn't make sense, because if you were to believe this, you would have to believe Megan stepped on glass the day before, she stepped on glass in the separate location, and then stepped in glass when she got out the car and stepped on the glass bottle, which I feel like my previous statement still stands. This doesn't make sense. In addition to this, we also have x-rays and medical records saying that there were bullet fragments in her foot. Tory's team tries to spin these medical records into another narrative. They allege that these three doctors have conflicting reports, which put holes in Megan's claims that she got shot. But if you actually been to a doctor, their medical findings actually make sense. The first doctor, being an ER doctor, is going to see the patient and ask them what's wrong. And after Megan said that it was glass, he looked at the cut and sent her where she needed to go, which in this case was an orthopedic surgeon. Then next, this orthopedic surgeon is going to operate on her to remove the glass and needs to know where the glass exactly is located in her foot. Because sometimes you can't remove everything from an injured foot that might have something in it. Because if you're removing something, it might cause more damage coming out than just if you were to just leave it in. So sometimes you might have to leave it in. So he does an x-ray and sees that that's not glass, that's bullet fragments. So he and his assistant, Dr. Hirono, which Tori's team conveniently left out, both get together and take out the bullet fragments and sew her back up. The next day, to make sure everything's good, they call over a plastic surgeon to look at her feet through an x-ray, which shows minimal shrapnel in her foot, as well as an infection. I also like how it literally describes it as shrapnel, but Tori's team tries to spin this as being fishy because it says nothing about bullets, but it literally says shrapnel. And they try to reduce this as to just being a foot infection when it's mostly about shrapnel. If it was glass, she would have described it as glass instead of shrapnel, which occurs from an explosion or a shooting. They also try to paint a narrative that since none of these doctors testified in court, that this seems a bit fishy. But the assistant for Milton, Dr. Hirano, which Tori's team conveniently left out, was there to testify and explain the x-rays, as well as give a witness testimony that he had helped remove the bullet fragments from Megan's feet. Finally, they used this medical record without any context or date right here. And it could have been them completely removing everything from one foot, but not the other, but we don't know. And by not being specific in this image right here, it comes off as manipulative. These are all non-related parties, all saying the same thing, from all the doctors to the police receiving the evidence. So if you want to prove Megan was never shot, you have to have solid evidence instead of speculation that everyone is out to get you. The next claim that I want to debunk is the claim that Tory Lanez DNA was not found on the gun. I think this is one of the things that would work in Tory's favor, but the conclusion that his team came to is not necessarily the right conclusion. At trial, it is stated there was no DNA found on the magazine, but the DNA on the gun was found to be inconclusive. They portray this as meaning that there was no DNA that was found on the gun, but this isn't the case. After DNA experts all testified, the prosecution and defense came to the conclusion that Tory's DNA on the gun was inconclusive, meaning that his DNA could not be included or excluded from the gun. This is because they couldn't tell if it was his DNA on the gun because there was 4 different profiles and it just seemed to be too complex to identify if it was just him. So this testimony is true because we cannot say conclusively that he actually touched the gun. Also, according to criminologist Randy Zapita during the trial, DNA is not always found or even left behind on objects. This demonstrates that even if he did shoot the gun, his DNA might not be left behind. To be honest, if his DNA was found on the gun, real life isn't like CSI where DNA magically proves that he shot the gun. In this case, DNA is a very small piece of a large puzzle, as said by Judge Hereford, and not a smoking gun. DNA sheds so easily, so it could be argued that his DNA was on the gun because it was his driver's, and Tory could have been passing the gun to his driver, Jaquan, every time they went out in public. They could also argue that he touched the gun when he allegedly struggled with Kelsey to stop her from shooting Megan. But later on, they're going to say he didn't touch the gun at all, which I don't think helped his case at all. However, what added to Megan's case was the fact that the gun was found on the side of the car where Tory sat. Why was it next to him? If Kelsey actually shot the gun, why wasn't it next to her? Republican Anna Paula Luna is trying to free Tory and is putting too much stock in using DNA evidence when at the end of the day, anything could have been argued as to how his DNA was on the gun or not. The next claim is the audio from the Ring camera shows that Tory never said dance, therefore poking holes in Megan's credibility. Personally, I think this is the dumbest claim out of all of them because a Ring camera is clearly in the house and it captured gunshots because gunshots are really loud versus people yelling. It's very faint, but you can hear a voice saying what people believe to be either dance or stop it. This is a short section, but I'll come back to the Ring camera for Jaquan and Kelsey's bodyguard affidavits. The next claim is that DNA and evidence were mishandled and that this is malicious. Technically, it is true that at the preliminary trials, Ryan Stogner, a detective for Los Angeles Police Department, said that the bullet fragments removed from Megan's feet cannot be located. So, through mismanagement or whatnot, the bullet fragments could not be found. I'll give you that. But that happened in 2021. And the biggest issue with this is that there was no follow ups. If Tory's team truly believed the bullet fragments were missing, or that there never was fragments, they should have kept following up with the police department. However, I don't think it would have helped Tory's case even if the bullet fragments had always been missing. As stated earlier, we had multiple doctors that said that they had worked on the bullet fragments, as well as given the fragments to the police that could easily testify that they received bullet fragments. So these non-related parties saying the same thing would prove that there were, in fact, bullet fragments if they truly had been lost. However, Tory's team shot themselves in the foot when they said, along with these bullet fragments, that the firearm also had not been introduced into evidence in the trial and that there had only been through pictures. The judge responded that this was demonstrably false because he contacted the police and they said the firearm magazine, and all the bullet casings and the bullet fragments are still in the Los Angeles Police Department's custody. By not checking with the police department and alleging out of nowhere that the gun was also lost really embarrassed them. I'm going to speed run through these new affidavits because they really don't help, starting with Jaquan Smith. Now, Jaquan Smith not giving his testimony at trial is nobody's fault but Tory's team. Jaquan Smith, at the end of this affidavit, ends up blaming the district attorney, saying that they prevented him from testifying because that they were not ready to cross-examine him. But this actually is not the case. This affidavit got struck down at the appellate court because it was not new evidence at all. The state cites where Tory Lanez's lawyer came to the conclusion that he did not want to use Jaquan Smith because Sean Kelly had already made the testimony saying that Kelsey had the gun already. So someone making a testimony that is close to you isn't going to really do anything. Furthermore, we see that the prosecution say, hey, we'll let him testify in court, but let's have a continuance, which is a delay of the court in order to allow him to testify. It was Tory himself that said, let's not do that, presumably because he probably didn't want to keep on going with the trial and wanted to end it so it wouldn't go after Christmas. Spinning the narrative that the prosecution wouldn't allow him to testify is a straight up lie. I personally believe that along with Christmas, Tory did not call him up because he would have gotten grilled and caught in a lie at cross-examination by the prosecution. But that's just my theory. Now, I'm going to go through his affidavit, and this is going to be my personal opinion because this wasn't presented at trial. After reading this, I feel it's too vague and doesn't go into any detail like Kelsey's deposition to really change my mind. It also brought up more unbelievable things to me. Listening to the audio, we know that the gunshots happened for 7 seconds with a total of 5 shots, with a quick 3 shots, a 2-second pause, and then 2 more shots. Jaquan doesn't say exactly when Kelsey shot. Matter of fact, he doesn't even say that he did see her shoot, but that he saw her with the gun. If she started shooting as soon as she whipped out the gun, he would have been pulling Megan, meaning he would have to have been facing the shooter, and Megan would have to be facing Jaquan to have been shot in the back of her feet. meaning she would have had to have seen Tory run up from behind Jaquan in order to get the gun from Kelsey. All this is happening in like the 7 seconds, so that doesn't seem believable in order for this to all happen in 7 seconds. Also, how come Jaquan didn't see who shot? If, like I'm saying, I'm assuming he's pulling Megan and facing towards Kelsey. Especially if you see someone whip out a gun, I wouldn't just blank out if you're facing the same direction because you don't want to get shot. Also, if there was a struggle, not that many shots would have gone off at that frequency that they did. A gun expert testified that the gun isn't a gun that you can just tap and it'll go off. You have to really pull on it with 8.5 pounds of pressure. To me, this doesn't really indicate a struggle. Also, what is the probability that Jaquan was pulling on Megan and managed to not get shot or have any bullet fragments in his foot if he was right behind her? A direct bullet doesn't necessarily have to hit his foot, but a bullet hitting the ground, at least it should have exploded and put shrapnel in his foot at the least. But I make a lot of assumptions because the statement isn't very specific and is very vague, but this did not convince me of Tory's innocence, as well as it didn't convince the appellate court for a mistrial. Now, the biggest new evidence that was brought up was of Kelsey's bodyguard, Bradley James. And from what I read, this may not even be able to have been used in the actual trial that did happen because it would be considered hearsay. And hearsay is essentially when I say, I wasn't there for this incident, but I heard from this person that this happened. So therefore, it's actually true. And it's not really a good defense, and it wouldn't be really admissible in court. So I definitely don't think this is going to get Tory another trial. But even though it was not used in court and will probably get shut down by the appellate courts again, I'm going to put my 2 cents on it. And just like Jaquan Smith's statement, to me, it just doesn't make sense. This portrays Kelsey as already shooting 3 times, and then Tory runs towards her, meaning it's even less time than the second 7 seconds to get her and stop her. Again, like the gun expert said earlier, you couldn't just tap the trigger. So if Tory got to her after those initial 3 shots, I don't think she would have been able to get those 2 shots off in quick succession. Also, what's the chance of Megan getting bullet fragments in both feet if 3 of the bullets, Bradley James said, were shot in the air, and then 2, when Tori pushed her arm down, were shot at her feet? What's the percentage chance of both those hitting both of her feet rather than having, the 5 shots? And again, even if these 2 shots did hit the ground and produce the shrapnel that got in both her feet, how come Jaquan Smith didn't get any bullet fragments in either of his feet or any injuries? Because he was right behind her, pulling on her, indicating that they were right next to each other. So this didn't add anything to me, and I don't think it's going to get Tory a new trial. For a Sean Kelly statement, I'm not going to really go into any detail because I feel it's so dumb for them to try to use Sean Kelly if in the trial he was the one that said Tory also shot the gun. Kelsey had it first, but Tory also shot the gun and shot it everywhere. But Tory's team tries to use Sean Kelly's initial statement to the police as being the reason that Kelsey shot the gun. People believe that he changed his story on the stand to reflect that Tory then received the gun because he didn't initially say that in the report. But I personally don't think he ever changed his story. I just think he's always been an unreliable witness. First off, the body cam that they show cuts off, so we don't know what more was being said to the police about the shooting. And then from this snippet of the video, it doesn't really help Tory's case because he says he doesn't see that Kelsey shot Megan, but he says that he saw her drop shooting into the car. And then when I looked up what drop shooting meant, it's either a tennis term or when you kind of squat in Call of Duty. So she essentially squatted and shot into the car. So he said something similar happened in the car at trial, but we know that she couldn't have shot into the car because there was no bullets or bullet casings that were found in the car. So I feel like Sean Kelly wasn't a good witness from the jump, and it's not helping his case to use this. I want to end this by saying that in hindsight, painting Kelsey as the shooter and mastermind behind everything was a horrible mistake. Her recanting her full audio and acting like she forgot everything left room to argue whether she was the shooter or not. I'm going to let their closing arguments speak for themselves. Deputy D.A. Bott reportedly began and ended his closing argument with what he said this case is all about. Megan Pete, aka Megan Thee Stallion. Bott showed jurors a PowerPoint slide with a photo of Megan and a quote from her testimony last week, which said, "If I would have known that coming out and speaking my truth would come with people agreeing with me being shot, if I would have known, I would have started to lose my confidence and start to feel like, dang, maybe I should be dead. This is a case about a guy who shot a girl. People saw it and then he apologized for it." Bott reportedly said to jurors, he noted that Megan, Harris, and Kelly all reportedly seeing Lanez with a gun and recalled Harris' text to the still missing Edison saying, "Help, Tory shot Meg, 911. He called the text critical, pointing out that it had been sent 5 minutes after the shooting. She was only thinking about Megan at that time. Bott said, "I just want to stop here for a second. The defense is asking you to believe that Kelsey Harris shot Megan that night, then was comforting her and held Megan's leg bleeding on her. He reminded jurors Harris had been drinking heavily in the hours prior. Are these the actions of a girl who just shot Megan? Within 5 minutes of the shooting, she sends this text message. And Kelsey Harris, some sort of sophisticated criminal mastermind where she's framing the defendant within 5 minutes? Is that a reasonable conclusion?" Bott reportedly asked jurors. Both alleged that Harris had been compromised since she gave her interview in September, adding that Megan's former head of security's disappearance might have been a boon, and he drew the jury's attention to something McDessian said in his opening that didn't play out in testimony regarding Megan and Harris's alleged shared interest in rapper DaBaby and Brooklyn Nets star Bill Simmons. What does that have to do with this case? Was that just to shame the girls? Bott asked, referring to the women. Bott reportedly cited Megan's testimony that she was uncomfortable on the stand because she had to sit in the same room as people who continuously spread misinformation to make me look like a bad person, and because I have to sit next to Tory. Look what coming forward has done in her life and her career and reputation, Bott told the jury. You think she wants to be here? Bott added that after more than 2 years of this torture for Megan, it's finally time to hold Lanez accountable for his crimes. I want everybody to really think back to last Tuesday. That's when Meg testified, Bott said. I think everybody in this courtroom felt something that day. This is the critical question in this case. Was Meg telling the truth that afternoon? I think everybody in this courtroom knows the answer to that question. If you believe Megan and what she said last Tuesday, this case is over. We're done if you believe Megan. That's enough. According to Rolling Stone, McDessian urged jurors to reject all of Megan's testimony on the basis she lied when she initially told police she stepped on glass and later denied having been intimate with Lanez prior to the shooting. McDessian said the prosecution's case was full of holes, requiring speculation on the part of the jury. He claimed Megan and Harris got into a violent fight when Lanez revealed he'd been romantic with both women, and that Lanez was allegedly trying to grab the gun away from Harris after she allegedly fired the first shot. My client was trying to save black women. They're talking about, McDessian argued. He argued that the text Harris sent to Megan's bodyguard 5 minutes after the shooting was self-serving. McDessian wrapped up his closing argument on Thursday. Deputy DA Kathy Ta was given the opportunity to give a rebuttal, where she reminded jurors of McDessian's claiming that the case is about sexual relationships. Ta disputed that claim, arguing the case is about a shooting, not sex. She showed jurors a PowerPoint slide listing what the case was not about, which included anyone's sex life, the party at Jenner's house, as the shooting didn't happen at the party, and the LAPD. Ta argued that Harris was a terrible liar on the stand and wasn't suited for the label of criminal mastermind that McDessian was painting her. The DDA noted that when the shooting occurred, Megan's level of fame was notably higher than the Canadians, which reportedly caused Lanez to react from his seat in the court. Todd said Lanez had a massive ego and he could not handle being disrespected. And when Megan had the nerve to walk away from him, he lost it and fired 5 rounds at her, then apologized for doing so. This really set the tone for both the prosecution and the defense, which led to the prosecution winning. Going back to painting Kelsey as a mastermind that framed everything, another thing that really hurt Tory was the fact that he sent apologies to Kelsey and Megan.
You for using Telmate.
Hello.
Hey.
Y'all got out safe and everything.
Huh?
Y'all got out and everything. Y'all good?
Megan's still in the hospital. I'm outside the hospital.
What hospital y'all at?
Why what?
You said what?
You're listening to Street TV.
I said Megan's in the hospital still. I'm outside the hospital waiting.
What hospital are you at?
I don't know. Let me see. Cedar, something like that. Cedar.
Bro.
Sure.
Regardless, I know she probably never ever gonna talk to me ever again, but bruh, I just want you to know, bruh. Nigga, I was just so fucking drunk, nigga. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on, bro. That ass. I didn't even know what the fuck was going on, bro. Like, that ass, nigga. I'd never do some shit like that, bro. Just that, nigga, I was so fucking drunk, nigga. I just didn't even understand what the fuck was going on, bro. Like, so, whatever,
Yeah.
bro. But, regardless, that's not gonna make anything right. And that's not gonna make my actions right, bro. But I'm just deeply sorry, bro. I never even moved like that, bro. Like, never moved like that at all, bro. Like, for real, dog.
I know. There's a lot that happens, but
A whole lot, bro. Like, a whole lot, bro. I feel crazy, bro. But in this day, like, what happened already, bro. I can't take it back, bro. I'm just telling y'all, I'm sorry, bro. Like,
You're listening to Street TV.
I think it was just too drunk, bro. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When I got to the house, shorty, like, all top niggas, they gave me like 5 shots, like, off the door, like, you feel me? So I was out of there, like, wasn't even there with niggas, like, you feel me? We was taking shots past that time. I wasn't even there with niggas, like, bro. I don't even remember what we was even arguing about, bro. Like, you feel me? Like,
yeah, no, I was already fucked up by the time you got there, so I don't know how much.
it's like, but tell me what hospital she's in.
You're listening to Street TV.
I just told you, Cedar Medical.
Alright, you ain't got Corn's number, right? You ain't got my security number.
Juan, I do have his number.
Can you call this nigga Corn and tell this nigga, bruh, you get a chance, bro, just figure out what you gotta do to bail me out this shit.
Okay.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate it. I'm sorry again, bro. Like,
I think honestly, I think we're gonna try to, because obviously, like, the longer you're in there, the more hot it's gonna get, because it's already on. Like, there's no names released yet, but the report is already out.
But like,
so
out is what? What you mean out?
it's on some app. Megan's team is on top of this. So,
Yeah, but like, niggas don't. There's no way that Megan's on like the thing.
What'd you say?
There's no way that Megan's like on the thing.
You're listening to Street TV.
No. So far, none of that is there. But I mean,
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna be one of those. If anything, the only nigga that's gonna get this backlash is me. It's not gonna be her. But no,
I'll let
you
you know.
Alright, it is what it is. Regardless if I get out of here today or not, bro, I just want to let y'all know, bro. I'm sorry, bro. Like, I never did that shit if I wasn't that drunk, bro. Like, you feel me?
Yeah. You have 1 minute remaining for this call.
I'm gonna get out of here, you guys.
You're listening to Street TV.
I can't hear you. What you say?
Yeah,
Hello?
Tory tried to use the defense that he was apologizing for sleeping with both of them and breaking up their friendship. The problem with this is that this call and the messages seem to be him apologizing for the shooting rather than apologizing for sleeping with them. First of all, why is Tory more distressed than the actual shooter? And Kelsey, why is she so calm if she was this evil mastermind that's framing Tory? Why is she being so calm? Another thing is that at this point, this situation is way past sleeping with someone. Kelsey would literally have tried to murder Megan, and he's apologizing to her of all people. Finally, saying that he could not even remember what they were arguing about because he was too drunk. This means that he couldn't be apologizing for breaking up the friendship because that is what they were arguing about. So he would have to be apologizing for the shooting. It makes so it makes no sense to not specifically say that he was apologizing for breaking up a friendship because breaking up a friendship isn't necessarily a crime. The only reason to not specifically mention what you are apologizing for is if you are trying to hide something from the police. In a new interview with Jason Lee, Tory said that he tried to protect two black women by saving Megan from the gunshots and by taking a rap so Kelsey would not have to go to jail. Now, if you were really trying to protect black women and took the charge to save Kelsey and Megan, why didn't you take the plea deal that was offered to you so you could have gotten out of jail sooner and cleared Kelsey's name so she wouldn't get attacked by you and Megan's fans? Why did you lie in songs and act like Megan was lying about stepping on glass when you in fact knew that she was shot? Why did you make music videos where you were slicing up a horse's legs knowing that she was shot and teasing her? Why did you sleep with two best friends and ruin their relationships? I will always believe in looking into both sides of any case before coming to a conclusion, but you're not going to make me question my intelligence. At the end of the day, this is not a story of a woman trying to take down a black man. This is a story of Tory's sins catching up to him. Back in the day, he chased down a person named Dex for dissing him after he, in fact, made a public competition for everybody in the industry to come and diss him, and then got butthurt when Dax dissed him and made Dax he chased down Dex with his goons and made him apologize. Even while this case was going on, in the allegations of Megan being shot, he literally couldn't control himself and ended up punching August Alsina in the face for not shaking his hand, even though Tory was the one that dissed August, as well as August maybe not wanting to shake his hand because it was COVID time, and he doesn't have a regular immune system. He has autoimmune disease, so it would have made COVID even worse for him. And then lied and posted this right here. I will still have a place in my heart for some of his music, but don't free Tory.